Can the US beat Iran? Seriously, I know it's a weird question for me, Mati Shoshani, asking it, but I have to bring this up. Can the US actually beat the Iranians fully in the way that everyone will be able to see and understand? Because war doesn't always, at least not in this case, end in the moment another target is bombed. It doesn't. Sometimes it enters a more dangerous stage precisely when the fire seems to go down. And in the Strait of Hormuz, the American Navy is stopping Iranian ships. Inside Iran, the regime is asking citizens to save electricity. And in Washington, Trump is no longer chasing the talks. He's telling Tehran, if you want to talk, you know where to call. So the big question today is not only can the United States beat Iran, the real question is, what does victory even look like against a regime that has already been badly wounded but still holds an entire nation hostage? I'm Mati Shoshani, bringing you the truth about what's happening in Israel and everything heating up in our neighborhood, the Middle East. And this is Ground Report. Today, we're going to break down a question that sounds simple, but isn't simple at all. Can the United States actually beat Iran? The short answer is, of course, yes. On a military level, the United States, long ago, can hurt Iran in ways the regime in Tehran can't even imagine. It can strike infrastructure, ports, command systems, oil facilities, ships, missile networks, and the ability of the Revolutionary Guards to fund their axis of terrorism. But that isn't the most important question. That's important to note here. The most important question is whether Trump even needs to beat Iran in the traditional sense of the word. Does he need to conquer, to destroy, to overthrow everything by force and leave behind a massive, broken, dangerous country full of weapons, without clear control, and possibly on its way to a Syrian-style scenario? And this is exactly where we need to stop. Because against the Iran of today, victory does not have to be a picture of an American flag over Tehran. Victory can be something entirely different. A regime that understands it can no longer enrich uranium, cannot hold the Strait of Hormuz hostage, can't fund Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and can't continue acting as if the world is afraid of it. To understand all of this, we need to begin at sea. The Strait of Hormuz is not just another point on the map. It is one of the most important choke points in the world. A huge portion of the oil and gas moving from the Gulf to the world passes through this narrow passage between Iran and Oman. And when Iran threatens that area, it is not just threatening a ship, it is threatening fuel prices, airlines, maritime insurance, Europe, Asia, and the global economy. And that's exactly the card Iran is trying to play. The Revolutionary Guards don't need to defeat the American Navy in a naval battle. They do not need to sink an aircraft carrier. They need to create fear. It's enough to attack several ships. It's enough to seize two. It is enough to plant mines. It's enough to make captains think twice before passing through. And once the sea no longer feels safe, the global market starts reacting. But here, Trump changed the game. Instead of immediately rushing into another night of airstrikes, the United States shifted to a naval and economic blockade. Not a full closure of the entire strait to the whole world, but a blockade of vessels entering and leaving Iranian ports. In simple terms, the world can pass and Iran can't. That's a major difference in the entire story. Because a bomb hits a structure, a blockade hits a regime's routine. It hits the money coming in. It hits the oil that cannot get out. It hits tankers. It hits shell companies. It hits the shadow fleet Iran has built over years to bypass sanctions. And most of all, it hits the thing the Revolutionary Guards needs in order to remain strong. Cash flow, money, oil, the ability to pay people, the ability to fund proxies, the ability to rebuild factories, missiles, air defense systems, militias, and terrorist organizations. And this brings us back to the question, can the United States actually beat Iran? If we're talking about military capability, the answer has always been clear, a resounding yes. But Trump is not behaving right now like someone searching for another victory image. He's behaving like someone trying to force the Iranian regime into the room while leaving it with no air whatsoever. He canceled the envoy's trip to Pakistan because the Iranian proposal did not include a clear commitment from all the centers of power in Tehran. That detail is critical because in Iran today, it is no longer clear who can truly sign on behalf of the state. There's a president, there's a foreign minister, there is a National Security Council, there is the religious leadership, and there are the Revolutionary Guards. The problem is that real power is often not held by a person speaking. It is held by the people who control weapons, the money, the intelligence, the ports, the missiles, and of course, the fast boats. If Trump signs with someone who doesn't truly control the system, there's no agreement. There's only a document. And that's exactly what Washington is trying to determine right now. Does Iran have one address, or is it a country breaking into centers of power? And in practice, Trump is telling them, first, decide who runs your country. Then we can talk. And while they try to decide, the blockade continues. Above this blockade stands an unusually large American military force, 3 American aircraft carrier groups in the Middle East and the Indian Ocean, more than 200 aircraft, thousands of sailors and Marines, destroyers, air defense systems, long-range strike capabilities, electronic warfare aircraft, a force that can move very quickly from waiting to striking. But it's important to understand, you don't send a force like this only to fire. You send a force like this so the enemy sees it, so it becomes visible. This is diplomacy through power. Not diplomacy of smiles, but diplomacy where the table sits next to an aircraft carrier. But Trump's message is clear. I don't need to rush. You, the Iranians, you need to be doing the rushing. Iran wants the blockade lifted before it returns to talks. Trump wants the blockade to remain, so Iran understands that talks are its only way to breathe. And that's the difference between regular negotiation and what's happening right now versus Iran. Trump isn't negotiating in the traditional, in the classical sense. He's not trying to find a pleasant middle ground. He's trying to make the Iranians understand that the deal is not a favor they're doing the Americans. It is their lifeline. And here comes the most important part of them all. The Iranian regime has already been hit hard. Military systems were hit. Infrastructure was hit. Missile networks were hit. Air defense systems were hit. The conventional navy was hit. Senior figures were hit. Iran's ability to project control was too hit. And most importantly, it is beginning to feel the pressure not only in its bases, but at home. When the president of Iran asks citizens to use fewer lights at home, that's not just a speech about saving energy. It is an admission. The war has entered the electricity bill. It has entered the water supply. It has entered the fuel. It has entered the state's ability to function as a country. Iran is a large country. It's massive, in fact, with large population, vast territory, mountains, deserts, cities, ports, borders, ethnic groups, internal crises, and a deep water crisis. Old infrastructure and an economy that has been suffocating for years under sanctions and, of course, mismanagement of the Iranian revolutionary regime. Just before we continue, if you want to truly understand the Middle East, not just a headline, not just a slogan, not just a short video, give this report a like. Write in the comments where you are watching from, and of course subscribe to the channel. Share Ground Report with people who want to understand what's really happening here, because this war is not only being fought on the ground, it has also been fought over truth, over explanations, and over the ability to see the bigger picture. We invite you to take part in something real, something rooted in the land and in the heart. The Rebuild Israel campaign continues, bringing life back to Israel's north. Along Israel's northern border, an area marked by war, displacement, and loss, we're planting an apple orchard. Not as a symbol for a single moment, but as part of a long-term commitment to rebuild what was damaged. This orchard is more than agriculture. It creates jobs for local families, it helps communities return and rebuild, and it sends a clear message to the people of Israel. You are not alone. And when you donate, you're not just giving, you are rebuilding. Your support puts trees in the ground, restores livelihoods, and transforms land scarred by war into land that grows once more. This is how renewal takes root. This is how Israel rebuilds after war. Join us in restoring the North and strengthening the future of the land of Israel. Go now to tbn.org/rebuildisrael or call 800-804-7895. Rebuild the land, restore hope, bless the future. But here's one problem that Trump can't suffocate by the blockade alone: the nuclear issue. Literally, even after strikes, even after facilities are damaged, even after tunnels or centrifuges are destroyed, knowledge doesn't disappear. Enriched material is not always located in a single place. Facilities don't always look like classic nuclear sites above ground. And if Iran has managed to disperse part of the material, hide part of the capability, or move knowledge deep into a tunnel network, the problem isn't over. It has simply gone underground, literally underground. That's why the American demand can no longer be only inspections. Inspection means we, the Americans, are watching you. But after everything that has happened, Washington and Jerusalem want something else. They want to take the card itself out of the regime's hands. Uranium enrichment, enriched material, missiles, proxies, the ability to return to the track once the cameras leave the country. Any agreement that doesn't touch that is not a solution. It's a timeout only. And this needs to be said plainly. If Iran remains with the ability to return to the nuclear path, with a missile network that can recover, with Hezbollah in Lebanon, with Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in the Red Sea, and the Revolutionary Guards holding Hormuz, well then America hasn't won. It's only postponed the next round of violence. But if Iran is forced to hand over enriched material, to limit its missiles, to give up part of its proxy network, to open up the seas, and to lose the ability to fund the axis of terrorism, that's already a very different kind of story. Without a victory parade, without occupying Tehran, but with a change in the balance of power in the Middle East. So can the United States beat Iran? Absolutely. Yes, there's no question about it. But if Trump is smart, he will not look for a victory that only looks good in a picture. He will look for a victory that changes behavior. He will look for a reality in which Iran can no longer hold Hormuz as a whip over the world, can no longer move towards nuclear weapons, can no longer fund the axis so easily, and can no longer tell America, you'll waste your time while its oil continues to flow. The question is whether this pressure will be sufficient. Because if it isn't, or if it is enough, we may see the Iranian regime forced to move without the Middle East falling into another abyss. And if it's not sufficient, all the American power already sitting in the region will not remain there just to be photographed. Tonight in the Middle East looks like a ceasefire, but it feels like a countdown. Will Iran pick up the phone or ignite the region before its time runs out? Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.